said to me, Thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee. Ask of me, and I will give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron, thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Be
I just
wise
realized
now, therefore, O ye
this clip is a lot longer than I like.
be instructed, you judges of the earth.
All right.
Serve the Lord with
That one's going to go on
fear
for
and
a
rejoice with
minute and a
trembling.
half, so I want to just fade it out here by hand. I had the whole song on there practically. Okay, good day. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing our study today in the book of Ecclesiastes. We're picking up our analysis at verse 15, but we're not gonna read the whole chapter because we read this a time two part many times. Let's just read from verse 9. What profit hath he that worketh in that wherein he laboureth? What profit hath he that worketh in that wherein he laboureth? I have seen the travail which God hath given to the sons of men to be exercised in it. He hath made everything beautiful in his time. Also he hath set the world in their heart, so that no man can find out the work that God maketh from the beginning to the end. I know that there is no good in them, but for a man to rejoice and to do good in his life. And also that every man should eat and drink, and enjoy the good of all his labor. It is the gift of God. I know that whatsoever God doeth, it shall be forever. Nothing can be put to it, nor anything taken from it. And God doeth it, that men should fear before him. That which hath been is now, and that which is to be hath already been. And God requireth that which is past. And moreover, I saw under the sun the place of judgment. The wickedness was there, and the place of righteousness, that iniquity was there. I said in my heart, God shall judge the righteous and the wicked, for there is a time for every purpose and for every work. I said in mine heart concerning the estate of the sons of men, that God might manifest them, and that they might see that they themselves are beasts. For that which befalleth the sons of men befalleth beasts. Even one thing befalleth them, as the one dieth, so dieth the other. Yea, they all have one breath, so that a man hath no preeminence above a beast, for all is vanity. All go unto one place. All are of the dust, and all turn to dust again. Who knoweth the spirit of man that goeth upward, and the spirit of the beast that goeth downward to the earth? Wherefore I perceive that there is nothing better than that a man should rejoice in his own works, for that is his portion. For who shall bring him to see what shall be after him? I'm going to try to move through, so let's read a little more. So I returned and considered all the oppressions that are done under the sun. And behold, the tears of such as were vexed, and they had no comforter. And on the side of their oppressors there was power, but they had no comforter. Wherefore I praise the dead which are already dead more than the living which are yet alive. Yea, better is he than both they, which hath not yet been, who hath not seen the evil work that is done under the sun. Again I considered all travail and every right work, that for this a man is envied of his neighbor. This is also vanity and vexation of spirit. The fool foldeth his hands together, and eateth his own flesh. Better is an handful with quietness than both the hands full with travail and vexation of spirits. Then I returned, and I saw vanity under the sun. There is one alone, and there is not a second. Yea, he hath neither child nor brother, yet there is no end of all his labor. Neither is his eye satisfied with riches, neither saith he, For whom do I labor, and bereave my soul of good? This is also vanity. Yea, it is sore travail. Two are better than one, because they have a good reward of their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. Again, if two lie together, then they have heat. But how can one be warm alone? And if one prevail against him, two shall withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. Better is a poor and a wise child than an old and foolish king, who will no more be admonished. For out of prison he cometh to reign, whereas also he that is born in his kingdom becometh poor. I considered all the living which walk under the sun, with the second child that stand up in his stead. There is no end of all the people, even all that have been before them. They also that come after shall not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and vexation of spirit. Well, if we get that far, we're going to have an interesting thing there, because those verses were a little bit confusing there at the end, huh? So back in 15, that which hath been is now. Ow, my finger. There we go. That which hath been is now, and that which is to be hath already been. And God requireth that which is past. So again, I'm not going to look at, it's not like Solomon hadn't seen things that were newfangled. I don't even think that's what he's talking. He's not talking about things like that, like our cars, or I know we have iPhones and stuff, right? Where people are still seeking the same things. People still want the same things, the basic things. As you know, as far as I can tell, all cell phones do is make people more miserable. All modern life does, as far as I can tell, is make people more miserable. They're not as people are not as happy as they were 100 years ago. So whatever that is, and I think that's also not a new thing. It's not a new thing. That's why he says that these things, you toil for these things, and you want to obtain, and you have it. And it's like you're never happy because you can't really enjoy it. Because when you set your heart on that, it's never enough. That's why you see these people who they cannot stop gathering wealth because they can't think of anything else that matters. And boy, that's going to be a dark life. Like, I got to get all this money because this is what matters. And it's like, no. Now, labor, like I said, work itself matters. What you do with your time, how you spend it. You shouldn't just work your whole life to just to get rich. It's like your labor should have purpose. Sometimes people say, I'm working hard so that, later on I can stop or whatever. I get it. Even that is vanity. And vexation. I got to stop someday. It's like you may not live to see that day. Not that, like I said, I can afford to take risks in my future because I have 8 children. It's like they can always pass me around, And also, like, the upkeep of one old man on 8 kids is a lot less. And of course, one old man, one old woman. I'm just saying, if it was ever necessary, which it might not be, I guess because my father needs care, they look at that and they think, well, maybe Dad will need care. It's like, hopefully he won't. Hopefully the Lord will keep me strong right down to the finish. I'm going to try to help him. Okay, so then he says, all right, so the thing which is now, it has already been. There's nothing new under the sun. And God requireth the past. What do you mean by require? What does it say in the good old Bible hub? In the Ecclesiastes chapter 3. Let's see what we got. Verse 15. Was a. Oh, that's actually back here. It is now. A different meaning than require. But it's like to search out. by any method, specifically in worship or prayer, or by implication to strive after. What do you mean? God searches everything out. Things, there's no statute of limitations because God exists from everlasting to everlasting. He does not, the present is not something that just disappears into the past for God, though it does for us. He searches it out. He calls us to account. You see it in the book of Revelation. The books are open. It's unavoidable. We have to come to judgment. You can take your sins and and all the things wrong with your life and go before God before that, or you can just keep your life going wrong and then just wait till you're dead, and then it's not going to be any help at all. God seeks out that which is past. We think we can walk away from the past. It will come back and haunt you inside and outwardly sometimes. Sometimes we do things in the world, of course, but God himself, all our deeds matter. As a Christian, I believe I'm saved by grace. But that doesn't mean what I do doesn't matter. It matters because I care what my Father thinks about what I'm doing. It matters because I'm being adopted as a son of God. I want to look like one. I don't want people to be like, that's a Christian. You're, like that. That's an awful example. And my Lord be evil spoken of because of me. I don't want that to be me. It's like, what, and so what kind of person wouldn't care about that? What kind of person doesn't care about that? Is that a faithful person? Is that person Jesus going to be like, oh, thanks, you were really, you really did things in my name, didn't you? Yeah, right. So, he requires the past. The thing which has already been, he requires the past. Seems odd there, right? But then he talks about judgment, so it seems like appropriate because he's like, God, things that have been are gonna be again, and God requires those things that are past. Also, it's sort of spiritually, like things repeat. Like there's repeating patterns of in all the prophets really that come up. That's why the book of Revelation, you can go through the Old Testament. There's so many elements drawn from the Old Testament. I said, and so he said, I saw under the sun the place of judgment. The place where judgment is supposed to be executed, the courts. The wickedness was there. It's true. I remember my wife, she told me when she went to court after she'd been married to me, and the name Stringini was known to the judge. And so she got waved off, I guess. And things like that, say hi to your cousin. But yeah, that's not, it's when you're benefiting from it, you think like, oh, but it's like when you're not. And also when judgment is being actually, people are being framed up for stuff or murdered in prison. The guy kind of, that kind of stuff is wicked. Especially in the place of judgment, where you have bribes corrupting things, or people not following the law. We certainly have a lot in this country. Our leaders. What do you do when you have a constitutional republic, but then the government itself is not really being obedient to that anymore? Like, you think about the fact that our president could launch a major strike on a sovereign nation, completely ignoring both the constitutional power, the power to make wars with the Congress. And the power, and they didn't even do any sort of, there was no war powers resolution either. No sort of like authorization for force or whatever, like they used to bother to get. But this is not entirely just the president's problem. Everyone around him, the Trump's like, here, we'll go do this bombing. We want to do this bombing. Everyone wants to do this bombing. And they're asking him as if it's his decision to make. Everyone in the government is corrupt like that. They're asking him as if it's his decision to make. I'm not done sidetracking. I just don't like that. That's not the law. That's corrupt. Place of righteousness, iniquity. It's a place where things should be right. You go to church. You don't expect the pastor to be trying to have sex with the girls who are blah, whatever. Just working in the office. Like good old Bill Hybels used to hit on the girls, Mr. Giant Mega Church guy, Willow Creek. I remember seeing the news finally. Whatever. I don't. Here's the thing. Yeah, but for the grace of God go I, yes, but also it's like some things you can't do. And I think that's what comes of people telling themselves their sins don't matter. And that's not the proper attitude. My sins are forgiven, but they matter. They matter very much because they're things that keep me back from being more Christ-like. And that's my goal. That's the goal of every Christian, that Christ should be formed in us. That we should have an inner idea of who Jesus is and to be able to, and that is what, how else are you going to conform to what Jesus is like if you don't know what he is like? And it's going to become like Jesus through magic or something. And it's not through magic. It's through the work of the Holy Spirit. I said in my heart, he describes it as work, not as a miracle. Though, it is a miracle because it's in that sense of like the miracle of life, the miracle, things that can be just so, we call them miracles because they're not part of normal life. Sometimes when good things happen, it feels miraculous, yes. And sometimes it's a genuine, miracle where it's something that's inexplicable to man. And so it doesn't require the violation of natural laws, it just requires the violation of our natural understanding. I said in mine heart concerning the estate of the sons of men, and we call things laws as if they are. We don't know if that's just like repeating patterns, so it's a law. Okay. That God might manifest them. By manifest them, it makes it sound like, but he wants them to, he wants to reveal them to themselves is what I believe that means, so that we would see that we are beasts. And it's funny because, that's something a lot of Christians would resist. They probably wouldn't like this verse, the idea that humans are beasts and that we differ nothing from a beast. And certainly, even if you don't believe in evolution, because I don't think evolution is something that calls for belief or anything. It's a scientific theory. It's like whatever. That's not meant as an insult either. The gravity is a scientific theory. Okay, so it's like I'm not here to pass judgment on what they're. I'll talk about it from time. I don't find it. I don't find their overall story to be compelling. I do think there is definitely something there because look what we can do with dogs. We can see there's flexibility in the DNA of animals, of course. Plants and all kinds of things. So the idea that animals change on Earth over time, that's obvious. Anyways, but the fact is, DNA-wise, we are very closely connected because of the things like we got hands and feet, and there's a lot to us. Though honestly, the body plan does not come from your DNA. The body plan comes from the egg itself. I remember learning that and being like, huh? It's like, yeah, the body plan. Not sure how it's not actually, that part gets me, maybe they just don't get it yet or something. I'm sure they will. Anyways, so the things were laid out. I mean, when you look at monkeys, we look a lot like them. We got that, but there's differences. They say there's only 2% difference in the DNA, but 2% in the information makes a lot bigger impact on the, on the actual person. When you consider, how much a tiny little error in your DNA can cause people to have debilitating diseases and stuff. Just one gene flipped wrong, can have a huge difference. So, the idea that, anyways, but I always say, I think God made the monkeys to mock us. They look like us, and it's a reminder that we are just flesh bags. We are not really bad. We are made in God's image, but we share the same breath as the beasts. Our animal nature is not, the scripture doesn't deny that about human beings, that we are like the animals. There's no, on a certain level, on the life and death side, there's no difference. We live and die like they live and die. We breathe like they breathe. And certainly by mammals, but I mean, of course, obviously, some animals, even fish, have to breathe, but they die. Right? We all have to die. So that's something that, is a great equalizer. And he says, that's vanity, man. That's so empty. Because it's like, yeah, man is not, I don't want to say man is not special. But I would say man is less special sometimes than he thinks. It's like, we are made special. But we think sometimes too highly of ourselves. Without realizing that, we are much lower on the totem pole than we would like to reckon ourselves. That's why people always want to put themselves on the same footing with God. We are beneath, he is above. No, one breath. I mean, we're like the being alive part of being a human. How is that much different than the being alive part of a dog? As far as like they breathe, they have eyes, they have some sort of senses, sensory organs and stuff, and they're alive. That's not saying they share the same kind of consciousness. It's just their life is not much different. When it gets snuffed out, it's kind of the same. And breath there is probably ruach, which is spirit. But it's not, again, we talk about, in fact, I'm going to check it. There is another word for breath. What verse is that? Verse 19. 19. There's one thing, the diet, it's all one breath. The word is, it's ruach, which is breath, wind, or spirit. And here it probably does mean wind, because it's like, because he talks about the breath of the beast going downward and the breath of the man going upward. I mean, you can make a lot about that. It's aha, where's your soul sleep now? It's like, okay. Granted, I never deny that there are arguments against it in the scriptures. I just think the arguments for it are much better. It's like, and you can, people say, there are no good arguments. Oh, okay, smarty guy. I know I don't need to listen to, if someone just wants, we got to be realistic here. Some people are so like, oh, it's so cut and dry. It's obvious. This is what, I remember someone was like denying the Trinity. It's like, oh, this is what it is. He's a Godhead. Bah. Godhead. Oh, yeah, sure. You came up with a new, now you plucked some word out of wherever. Oh, it's because it's in the Bible, because it's in the King James. Okay, yeah. It just means divinity. Godhead. I was like, okay, this is Godhead. I got a name for it. Okay. Well, it's vanity. All go to one place. We're all going to go into the ground. All are of the dust, and all turn to dust again. For dust thou art, and unto dust thou shalt return. As the Lord said to Adam, who knoweth the spirit of man that goeth upward, and the spirit of the beast that goeth downward? That's right. Now, how do I work that in? It's just like when Jesus said, Father, into thy hand do I commit my spirit. There's something away about our lives. Now, as far as the beast goeth downward, I don't know. I always would feel like all life returns to God who gave it. That's what it says. The spirit returns unto God who gave it. This will say later in Ecclesiastes. Well, the dust returns to the dust as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. But the spirit, when Jesus died, he gave up the ghost. And the spirit went to God, right? And then when he rose from the dead, the spirit returned to his body, and he rose from the dead. What about the in-between? Well, Peter said his soul was not left in hell, which is the grave. So and I always say this, I always point this out. It says, Jesus gave up the ghost. It didn't say Jesus gave up the body. It says Jesus gave up, because the body is Jesus. Because that flesh and blood man was God. So the body does not just get left behind like it's not anything important. Even though it's made of dust, you will receive I remember Bible Answer used to say this, and I think he's right. There's some sort of like one-to-one correspondence between the body that was and the body that shall be. Meaning it is a transformed version of your body, because your body is you. It's part of what makes you. You're all that. And then you'll suddenly be some other dude, in the resurrection. That's what, I'm going to be like Christ and Christ-like, and I will be the most Christ-like self. I will be a perfectly Christ-like self version of me. It will still be my personality, but it'll be a Christ-like personality. having been adjusted by my walk and now by the Spirit of, I think the unbridledness of the Spirit being in the resurrection in our new bodies, there will no longer be flesh wrestling against the Spirit. And if you welcome the Spirit in and you've already built him a home there, you're not in danger of the sins that like Satan could fall prey to, because he has no flesh to tempt him. So what's his excuse? That's the thing. At least we can blame the flesh. But the thing is, not every sin is a fleshly sin. Now, the flesh can contribute to the sins, like pride is not necessarily, it's like Satan was proud. That's the thing. It's like you don't have to actually be in the flesh to experience pride. So there you go. Even though flesh and pride definitely go well together. Oh, yes, the pride of life. Oh, boy. So let's move along. Now I'll go to one place, all of the dust. The dust again. Oh, yeah. So the Spirit, I believe the Spirit goes to God. Yes. I just don't think that it means your life returns to him and your life force. And that may be a personal, powerful thing. I mean, it may be something, your life force may be unique to you. I just don't think that it's me. And I do think that when you die, you enter a state that's much like anesthesia. You will be dead. But you won't notice the passage of time. And the next thing you know, it'll be the resurrection. However, and we will all wake up together on that day. All the dead in Christ will rise. And then they which are alive and remain will be caught up together with them in the clouds. And that's the resurrection. I don't like to call that the rapture. But anyway, since I believe in the resurrection, also notice he says, who knows the spirit of man that goeth upward? He might just be relating popular theories. Because he's saying, who knoweth the spirit of man? But let's go and say, what does he mean? Who knows man's spirit and the spirit of the beast? Well, I suppose God. I want to see the NIV translation of this part. No, because interesting. When it says manifest them, I think we're going to get a different translation here. I'll bring it up right now. Manifest is this word in Hebrew, barar, to make bright, like polish up, But in that sense, choice, chosen, cleanse. When you say something, like we say, here's a choice cut of meat. It's like, ooh, a nice one. So that's why it says to make things bright. Like, ooh, this is a bright, shiny one. Choose that one. It means like a chosen thing. So it's a little different. So I'm guessing the NIV is going to take that into consideration when they translate it. When they give their interpretation, I should say. As for humans, God tests them so that they may see that they are like animals. So let's change it to tests. He doesn't want to say, I want God to manifest them. They just decided to that's what I mean. This is an interpretation. So they take this idea of choose, they change it to test. Well, the idea of someone being chosen as being sort of tested and approved and polished and shined, that makes sense too. So I'm not going to say that's entirely wrong. I'm just going to say I like you to consider both ideas. So God tests them to see that they are like the animals. They're not animals. They're like the animals. Surely the fate of human beings is like that of the animals. Oh, it's like it. They want to make sure it's just a metaphor. But is it? Is that a metaphor? I mean, they're making it a simile. Is our fate only similar? See, they're trying to interject a little New Testament mindset. And I'm pretty sure that word like is not in the Hebrew. That's kind of annoying me. That's why I don't use the NIV. I don't want a lot of other extra interpretation. The King James has enough of that. As one dies, so dies the other. They all have the same breath. Humans have no advantage over animals. Everything is meaningless. All go to the same place. All come from dust, and to dust return. Who knows if the human spirit rises upward and if the spirit of the animal goes down into the earth? That's kind of what I thought. That's what I think is sort of like, who knows? They say the human spirit goes upward, but who knows? Now, that is a true sentiment. Who knows? Who knows that, the spirit of the animal goes down, the spirit of the man goes up. Some people think animals go to heaven because they want to see their pets. Whatever. I always just say, like, I don't ask me to assure you of things that I have no idea about. I'm not gonna make stuff up just to please or annoy people. Okay. The Bible definitely, there are images of God's kingdom that, of course, include animals. And why wouldn't we? We've shared this planet with animals, and God has given it to the animals for so very long. Why wouldn't we want to continue sharing it with animals? Everyone, especially considering that they won't be aggressive towards us anymore, and quite possibly not towards each other, though I don't know about that. I don't know, because they will still be carnal, and we will not. Okay, so I do agree with the way they interpreted that, but again, I'm saying I have the same interpretation. Who knows? Who knows if that's what happens to man's spirit? He will say it later that he kind of thinks that way, because he says that the spirit returns to God who gave it, whatever that means. And then the dust returns to the earth. So let's continue. Where he said, I perceive that there's nothing better than a man should rejoice in his own works, and not in the labor of another, not in jealousy and envy and taking of other people's stuff, because that is his portion. That's what's for you. That's your portion. To get what you can out of life, to enjoy the work you're doing, to both feed yourself and to enjoy that, but also in the midst of it to have, that is the best thing. That if you could just, because some people love their work. I'm sure that's what he's talking about. It's like when people really like what they do, they're happier. I've known lots of people that chose careers that based on how much money they make, and they're so miserable. Miserable. Oh yeah, I'm in accounting. You like accounting? No, I hate it. Oh my God, every day doing what you hate. It's just like soul crushing. Okay. And who shall bring him to see what shall be out? Someone gonna, you need to enjoy your labor, because there's no point in laboring if you don't enjoy it, because otherwise you're not going to enjoy it later. He's saying ultimately there is no later. And so whatever you're storing up for the future, at some point there's no future for you, and you're just going to leave that. And there's no one who can show you now what's going to come later. So you can't plan for it. So it says in the parable that Jesus told about the man who built the bigger barns, thou fool, your soul tonight is required of you. And whose will these things be? So I return and consider all the oppressions that were done on the son. All the nasty, evil things people got up to against each other. The tears of such as were oppressed, and they had no comforter. On the side of their oppressors was power, but they had no comforter. Boy, that makes me think of the current situation in the Middle East, where the people of Palestine, before, because the British thought it was a great idea, we'll have a Jewish state. You understand? It's like that meant that they were going to be in control of everything. Instead of sharing power with everyone who was already there, Christians, Muslims, and Jews, they want to say, no, we the Jews will have all the power. That's not, that's good old-fashioned settler colonialism like we did here in America. It's ancient history now, but, it's like, it's rather brutal. Well, it is rather brutal. Now, individuals involved are not always involved in brutality, but it is rather brutal. And these people are oppressed. They're even in the lands that have been left to them, they're supposed to still be theirs, where Israel was never supposed to be, like Gaza Strip and the West Bank. In the West Bank, they make settlements and steal their land. And in Gaza, they are obliterating them from off the face of the earth. There's probably 500,000 dead under the rubble. Because they only count the people in Palestine, the Hamas people, they only count the people that have body bags for. The ones who come to the hospital dead. Or if they got, they get some record of. If a body's buried, they haven't done any all right, let's check the records of all the people who are living here and take attendance and who's left. They haven't done that yet. But we'll know, because we knew the population of Gaza beforehand, and then we'll see the population afterwards. The other day, I saw they set fire to a Christian village. They were machine gunning people who were waiting for food. In fact, they lure people to where the food is so they can machine gun them. I'm preparing a wonderfully hilarious video about all their shenanigans. So the whole world is going to be laughing very soon. When they get done laughing, they'll be having another feeling. So it's pretty awful when people are being oppressed and killed, and there's no one to help. There's powerful forces. I mean, Israel is backed up by the most powerful country in the world, or the country that thinks it's the most powerful, but a pretty darn powerful country, that's for sure. I don't know if we're, but overall, yeah, we're probably the most powerful, but we're not as powerful as we think. We're not omnipotent. Means all powerful. We are not. We can't just do whatever we want and have it all. We're going to do this and then it's going to work out just like that. We think we can just name it and claim it. We'll just say we're going to do this and then it's going to be that way. Okay. It's great evil when there's no comforter, no one to put a stop to the oppression, no one to deliver them. The people have tried. The Ansar Allah people in Yemen. The what is it? The Islamic Republic of Iran. They cared about the suffering. I'm sick of watching religious people be demonized across the world. I realize they demonize them because they want to demonize us. They've already begun to say the most dangerous people in America are white Christians. They're the ones we got to watch out for. They're already putting us. They want to make me a terrorist for the things I sing. That will be coming. I'm doing that Shoot the Shield song, which is about the IDF and about what a bunch of evil things they get up to. I'm describing. I'm using actually stuff they kept caught on camera, recreated in a funny way to make them look as awful as possible. And other things, and I do, I know it's like, they could make, if it got big enough, it made people angry, it could get me in big trouble. I guess. I don't care. Because that's the thing. It's like you gotta do what you can do. I can't be afraid of speaking the truth when people's lives are being snuffed out on a daily basis in a very unjust way. It's criminal. Wherefore I praise the dead which are already dead more than the living which are yet alive. See, I don't buy into that sentiment. I've had arguments with my Christian brothers because even Jesus would say, I tell you, it's impossible that offenses will come. But woe to them by whom they come, right? Woe to the man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. But woe unto that man who betrays him, for it would be better for him if he were never born. And so, and here's the thing, the way I take that, because I do think life is a positive. The idea that being born is like a negative thing. Coming into the world is like an on measure. Oh, that's evil. Oh, that's so anti-natalist. I don't believe in it. And all I think, do you don't believe what Jesus said? No. What I believe he meant is this. It's like I said, he uses hyperbole at times, and that's what people think. They say, oh, I wish I was never born. It's the kind of thing people say when they feel real awful. The experiences of life, I felt this too. It's like, I wish I'd never been here at all. It's not just like I want to die. I want to never have experienced anything. It's what's his name from, is it Bailey from It's a Wonderful Life. That was the whole premise. He wished he never was born, and the angel comes and he gets his wish. He was never born. He gets to see how the world would be if he hadn't been there to influence it. It's a good movie. I'm sure everyone has seen it. Anyways, but and that's the point. It's like, it is not better to not be born. Okay. But what I say is like being not born is, to me, is a calamity. And so when Jesus said it would be better for him if it wasn't born, he's saying that's how bad it is. That the worst thing is better. Because and that's just my opinion. You can disagree with me. I don't want to be dogmatic about it, but I will argue over that one because it's my, I don't think it's heresy to say so because I'm looking at Jesus' words and you say, well, Paul, you're kind of flipping them on their head. I'm like, am I? Because like I said, if it's just, he's just saying it's a really bad thing. I don't think he's commenting on whether life is worth living. You know what I mean? And it's like, as if it's actually better not to be born from Jesus. And I think most Christians don't believe that. But Ecclesiastes, it says this. Because without hope, with only looking at vanity and all this oppression and evil, it's like, I don't even want to see it. I understand. Like, to me, it's frustrating. Like, because I can't do anything. Or everything I do is so ineffectual, it's a joke. Israel has the power of all this military might that we give it. And the Iranians didn't want to keep fighting. I understand that. They were getting hit pretty hard. But they damaged Israel quite a bit. That's why Israel agreed to that ceasefire, because they didn't get the regime change they wanted, and I don't think they even got the nukes. So there's no point. Like I said, I don't like the way they demonize religious. Like I said, that we gave them a dictator. They had a democratically, Mossadegh or something like that, or I gotta look it up. They had a democratically elected leader who wanted to use the oil for the betterment of the Iranian people. He wanted to make Iran great again. Well, we can't have that, so we overthrew him and put in the Shah using the CIA. Shah then ruled that country with an iron fist for nearly 20 years. I think it was nearly 20 years. I forget when it was either 10 or 20 years, whatever. In 1979, there was a revolution led by religious people. And, they keep pushing us in this country. They know that the revolution will be led by people calling on the name of Jesus. Not that I at all advocate the ways of violence, but there are many who do believe in Jesus who don't care. And most Christians are very marginal Christians who do not, really follow Jesus' teachings and really, work on their lives to make them more Christ-like and all that stuff. They just live in their life being nominally Christian, and when they're pushed, it's not like they have no faith. And even if they don't, it's like they're going to rise up in the name of the thing they cared about most. All I'm saying is it wouldn't be surprising if we had a problem in this country. Yeah, if we had a brutal dictator and they overthrew our constitutional republic and they put in like a king, eventually religious people would be probably at the forefront standing up against it. I would certainly stand up against it. I wouldn't be for armed conflict because I don't believe that's what Christ has called us to, though he did say take up a sword at one point. But I'm not sure if that, again, meekness is about carrying a sword but being reluctant to use it. So I still say you should be very reluctant to give up your nonviolent, sort of integrity, unless, whatever. I don't think there's really. I think that we should trust in the Holy Spirit that He can decide who lives and dies. Like I said, I've said that's my weapon, the sword of the Spirit. So it's like. In some ways it's kind of like terrifying because I don't know if that's as reliable as my gun. Well, I mean, in the sense I don't get to kill whoever I want. Well, then maybe not. Maybe that's for the best. Let the Holy Spirit decide. So, better both they than he which has not been. I like, it's better to be dead. It's better to never have lived. Like I said, that's not really we don't really have that attitude as Christians. Maybe. Like I said, and when your life is so bad that you wish you never were born, Job also, he was like, I wish I was never born. But not in the end. In the end, it's all right. So he says, it's a little bit like Proverbs here for a little bit. Not to see all the evil done. Sometimes it's funny because sometimes a lot of people, they just walk through life blissfully ignorant of the things going on. I was blissfully ignorant of the atrocities of the Israeli regime going back decades. I had believed their propaganda account of what happened. These crazy Muslims they just want to kill the Jews. That's what I thought. It's just, Jews, we're going to kill them. Never mind that there've been Jews there for generations. And some of those are still talking, hey, we've been here for a while. We don't want this, We were fine. I was under the Sultan or whatever. It was he respected the people of the book. We paid the little tax. Oh, you got to pay a tax. You got to pay a tax. Oh, I got to pay a tax. That's so makes him so evil. Now, I do think that beheading pagans and stuff is not cool. All right, Christianity does not teach us to do that. We conquered Rome without shedding a drop of blood, except our own. All right, and that wasn't a Roman thing. Just the ear of the high priest's servant, but no. You know what I mean? We conquered Rome without shedding a drop of blood except Christ and our own. And so what? They couldn't conquer the Middle East without that? Well, it goes a little... did it go any faster for them? Not really. Christianity spread about as fast as... Did Islam spread faster? I don't know. I haven't checked the timeline. That was just sort of a curiosity just now to me. It'd be funny if they spread it about the same rate. Well, because in Rome you had a nice place for it to spread. With all the roads and the interconnection of all the regions. I considered all travail and every right way. I looked at the hard things. I looked at the right things, the good things. And that for this, a man is envied of his neighbor. When you do things right, people will hate you for your virtue. Look at that guy. Mr. Goody Goody. I hate goody goodies. They talk about him in town. He's got a reputation, and he's not. And he's not necessarily even like again, not a reputation as a hypocrite, but just reputation for being something good and helpful, without showing off or trying to, invoke the respect of persons among men. The fool folded his hand together and eateth his own flesh. That's like, every time you tell people about predestination, say, well, then why not just be a fool and do nothing? It's always, because the thing is, it's this you are not enough to sustain yourself. We need God. We live by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. It's not enough to just sit there and say, well, I'm just going to wait for things to happen. Asking it shall be given you. Seeking ye shall find. Knocking it shall be open to you. Better is a handful with quietness than both of the hands full with travail and vexation of spirit. That's kind of like a proverb based on what he's been saying. Better to have a happy life, enjoying yourself, doing something you like to do, living a right life, and enjoying your labor and all the fruit of it. Like for me, that's like my family, the things I've built. I enjoy a lot of the works of my hands. I haven't enjoyed all of them. It's been a bit of vanity sometimes. But better a handful with quietness, peace, not loud rambunctiousness. I mean rambunctiousness of experience. 2 hands full with travail and vexation of spirit. That's what happens. People, they're rich and they have no happiness. I returned and saw vanity under the sun. There's one alone. So he goes this one about teamwork, right? Someone's alone. There's no other person with him. There's not a second. There's no like wife or brother, child nor brother. He's got nothing. He's got no other person to worry about, just himself. And there's no end to his labor. Work, work, work. In some ways, my grandmother was like this. She wasn't rich, but she just she worked as long as she could. And that's all she really cared about was keeping that money and holding it so that there'd be enough money. And I guess it's important. People need money. You need money to get by for the most part. But we don't need money like we think we need money. What we need is God and the Holy Spirit. And once we have that, the rest of the world can be made right and we'll have what we need too. He's never satisfied with what he's got. I think of a lot of these rich billionaires that don't have families. Well, like Jeff Bezos, the guy from Amazon, like he's got this woman that he has paid for so many plastic surgeries to her. It's kind of something creepy about that. Here, baby, I get your rear end pumped up and here, fix those lips and cut the nose and I need some bigger knockers. All right, it's like, gee. Money can't buy you happiness, but it can buy you a body, apparently. He's not satisfied. He says, "Who am I working for?" That's why. I was saying that to my brother today. I was like, he was cleaning out his basement. I'm like, my dad's basement. I'm like, who you cleaning that up for? The bank? Who are you cleaning for? The bank? Because it's like, I don't know. I always thought we would just load the house up with trash when we were done. When we were done with it. Well, we may be there a while, so that's not how it's going to go. But anyways, yeah, sometimes you got to consider, what is this work going towards? When it's not going to something making you happy, that's when it becomes toil. And what do you mean by happy? Well, by happy, I don't mean like ha-ha or the guffaws. I mean, to me, happiness is when you're satisfied and refreshed. You know? But mostly satisfaction. It's the feeling that should come from the satisfaction of knowing you've done things well. He never says, "For whom do I labor and bereave my soul of good?" You know, they're always making so much sacrifice to get money that it's at their own expense. You know, they never get to have the life they wanted to have. Because again, you know, like I said, these women who are getting in the middle age, you know, I said the other day, if you're over 30, or it's too late, all the good people are gone, and you're probably one of them, not one of them. That may or may not be true. Everyone's, you know, some people, my brother didn't get married into his 40s. I thought he might end up being single for the rest of his life. I wasn't happy about that or anything. I had no plans for him. But he got married late, you know. But the point is, a lot of the good men are gone early, is what I was saying. You know, and for a young lady to tell her to focus on her career first is a big mistake. You may never have children if you don't start having them in your 20s. Which you should. You will like your life a lot better with children. Unless you hate children, because some women are not cut out to be mothers, and you may not want that. But if you have any inkling that, I might want to have kids, especially because a lot of times people don't know till later, though. That's the funny thing, is you find out later, all of a sudden they're like, I think I wish I'd had a family. And when you get to be 90 or whatever, 80, it's nice to, you know, no husband, no children. That's just such a... Yeah. But this guy doesn't even have brothers. No siblings either. He doesn't say, who do I do this for? It's a sore travail. He said, no, two are better than one. It's better, you know, everyone knows that human beings do not thrive when they're completely isolated. That's why they, you know, punish people in prison by putting them in solitary. And also, like, people working together, like they talked about this, sometimes things can be greater than the sum of their parts. Meaning, two people working together can get more done than two people working separately. You know what I mean? There's certain certain things, like if I'm moving, like if two people separately are moving heavy objects, you know what I mean? Each person may struggle with like some large heavy object, and they have to move multiple versions of them. But then if you have two, you can work together on just one at a time. And at some level, you can do sometimes more together. So I remember my wrestling coach buddy, he was like sort of talking about how he couldn't stand this new math. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Well, sometimes 1 + 1 is more than 2. And he just was so annoyed with me. He was like, no, but the number 1 + the number 1 is 2. I'm like, well, yeah, but I mean, come on. I like to delve into those concepts. Some people don't like to delve into things that go beyond black and white, but I think that's not interesting. If they fall, the one will help the other. You know, but woe to him is alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him up. Like the man in the parable of the Good Samaritan. He was just left on the road. He had no friend. You know, like if I fall down in the bar and break my leg, will anyone ever come looking for me? You know, thank God someone would. But if sometimes people have misadventures. In fact, that's exactly how my grandmother died. She had a heart attack in the bathroom, and she got on the floor and she couldn't get up, couldn't call. I know my mother had tried to give her those like life alerts thing and things, but she was always like, no. You know, she very didn't want to have anything to do with it, and She ended up dying pretty horribly. There was no one to help her up. If two lie together, they have heat. Yeah. And of course, for very many other things. It's like, these are just examples. How can one be warm alone? Well, it's harder. It's harder. Two are, thing. And again, that's like there's an additive thing. That they're more than just the sum, because working together, we can do bigger and better things than we could working separately. And if one prevail against him, two shall withstand him. If one is more powerful, like if someone can beat me, what are the likelihood they're going to be able to beat me and my friend? Well, maybe. Again, but as far as like, what is the chances he's going to be able to beat me within an inch of my life? Unless he's a Jack Reacher or something like that, probably not. Probably not. Some people go, "Wow, I'll take on 3-4 guys. I got no problem." Okay, Mister Tough Guy. I'm a tough guy too. I'm just saying the one guy taking me down is going to already have to convince me. But the two, now there are guys, of course, that can prevail against me. Of course, I'm just saying like, that it need more than one, or that I could, like, I certainly couldn't take two guys, unless they were real skinny, weak, or children. And a 3/4 cord is not quickly broken. When you get 3 strands in a cord, that's strong. A lot, and a lot of cords have many strands, But the idea is that there's strands of friendship, and you have 3 friends. And that's who can, that's even more powerful. Better is a poor and wise child than an old and foolish king. But again, that's not. It may sound good and wise, but do people follow that? No. No, they always respect the person. Well, he's the king. He's better because he's king. A child is no. Who cares about children? That's why Jesus suffered the little children to me. And when he was even as a child, he was asking questions and answering questions and reasoning with the elders in the scriptures. He will no more be admonished. That's like an old wineskin. That's when we become fools, when we can't be admonished, when no one can tell us when we're doing something wrong. You know what I mean? Like when we don't want to hear it. Because sometimes you got a brother, you always want to claim that your brother has a beam in his eye. Why are you bothering me? You got a beam in your own eye. Go see to it. Sometimes people see clearly and they give us a good rebuke. Even if my attitude needs to be that I got to go and, check out myself first. Still, it remains that he wants you to cast the speck out of your brother's eye. You're not supposed to suffer sin upon people. Certainly not your brothers. For out of prison he comes to reign. Whereas also he that is born in his kingdom becometh poor. He's not right. The old and foolish king, out of prison he comes to reign. I don't know what that is. It saying like, let me see. So I'll look at the NIV real quick. So it's saying the youth may have come from prison to the kingship, or he may have been born in poverty within his kingdom. At first I thought, the first part is what I thought I was kind of saying, like the wise child come out of prison to reign, like Joseph, right? Joseph was the wise child who came out of prison to reign. A child here is youth. Whereas also he that is born in his kingdom becometh poor. I thought there was just a commentary on how a foolish king will cause people born in his country to become poor. That's like Make America Great is about. It's about America not being made poor by our leaders who who years ago sent away our manufacturing base to other countries. We don't make a lot of stuff here anymore. We don't have good jobs because they chose to seek cheaper labor overseas. And we're the victims of it. And we've been impoverished by it. People born in this kingdom. Again, or they were saying, maybe he came from poverty. Okay, maybe that's an interpretation. I consider all the living which walk under the sun, but the second child that shall stand up in his stead. What's that? 15. In the NIV it says, I saw all who lived and walked under the sun followed the youth, the king's successor. And there was no end to all the people who were before them. But those who came later were not pleased with the successor. Huh. Let me see. I just keep looking at this. I'm like, this is just such a weird translate. Even it seems better translated as far as, well, I understand it, but I'm like, but what's this? Like here, for out of prison he cometh to reign. The youth may have come from prison to the kingship, or he may have been born in poverty within his kingdom. I saw that all who lived and walked under the sun followed the youth, the king's successor. There was no end to all the people who were before them. And those who came later were not pleased with the successor. This too is meaningless. Chasing after the wind. I don't know. I guess it's sort of, to me, it means like, oh, let's have a new ruler. In some ways, I'm like, oh, better a new ruler. Again, sometimes it's like people want something new. And he comes along, and now they're all following and all this, right? They're following the successor. It's a big deal. But there was no end to all the people who were before them. Does that mean physically before them or like in time before them? But those who came later were not pleased with the successor. This is, I guess, sort of like the political, the fact that political stuff is like, in the future, all of a sudden they're like, sometimes they're like, well, this president was a great guy. Then later on, they're like, we didn't like him. He was terrible. This guy was a good guy, or he's a bad guy. No, that guy was a bad guy. This is a good guy. People's opinions over time changing. The fact that you may get a good king or a bad king, and it's sort of like, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that, but there's something about like government there that he's saying is like there's a futility to it. Government is futile. Like I said, Orange McCain. No matter who I vote for, I get Orange McCain. So I don't know. Should I still vote? I will, but I'm not for Orange McCain. They won't get another chance. Doesn't matter. See, there was no other choice really. Sometimes I'll vote Libertarian if there's a good candidate running. I don't like a lot of them though. A lot of them are kind of like, eh. All right, so thanks for joining me. Look forward to being back again tomorrow. Until then, remember the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy, and he is the fulfillment of the law. Okay, let's see. Okay, there we go. Oh, I have the volume all the way down. Okay, here we go.
I will declare the decree. Yahweh has said to me, thou art my son, this day